There is a period early on when Mr. Christie asks the children a series of quick-fire questions. What about the doctor? Is he one as well? Answer, yes. What about your head mistress? Is she one as well? Yes. How many skulls does she wear when she's dancing? 20. So how many adults are involved then? Maybe like 400 plus, 450, 430, something like that. How many skulls do they wear? 20, Mr. Christie then says. So there's over 400 adults, and they're all wearing 20 skulls each. Can you do the maths? Over 800. I can do the maths, but Mr. Christie can't. Yikes! Good evening, good morning, and good day, and thank you so much for once again choosing to spend a little bit of your time with me. Today we are going to be looking at what was effectively the UK's version of Pizzagate. Fascinatingly, this actually occurred before Pizzagate, and I'm starting to wonder if, the more I look into this case, if Pizzagate and QAnon and all of this stuff could have just been inspired by what occurred over in London back in 2015. For today, we are looking at the Hampstead hoax SRA cases. Some of the most disgusting and disturbing cases of manipulation, fraud, deceit, harassment, and torturing children that I've ever come across. But first, we're going to be having a quick look at some breaking news as of 2 days ago. An Anglesey woman pleads guilty to plotting to kidnap a child. Now, what does that sound like, eh? A woman has pleaded guilty to plotting to kidnap a child. Christine Gerald Ellis Petley appeared at Mould Crown Court via video link from HMP Style this morning. The 58-year-old of 3rd Tudor, Holyhead, Anglesey, admitted to conspiring with others to kidnap a child between July 1st, 2020 and November 2020. The child, who cannot be named for legal reasons, will be referred to throughout the proceedings as Child X. Two other women, Ankie Hill, aged 50 of Holyhead, and Jane Clare Going Hill, 59 of Pump Street, Holyhead, entered guilty pleas to the same charge last December. Who do those names remind you of? That's right, it's Wilfred Wong's compatriots. 3 of them have now pled guilty to plotting to kidnap a child. Wilfred, you actually did kidnap the child with a knife. You're going down, buddy. It's nice knowing that a dangerous paedophile is going to be locked up for a long time. Now it's time to discuss Hampstead. This was like nationwide news 6 to 7 years ago, and yet I've never heard of this until the other day. Potentially the easiest way to understand the sort of details of this case, the TLDR, is to read an incredibly long court hearing document, and that's what we're going to do. Because it's incredibly rare for family courts to ever release, or family court judges to ever release statements to the public or make their sentencing and judgments public knowledge. But in this instance, the judge decided that that was necessary to aid with the children's safety, because of just how dangerous and malicious the people involved in trying to destroy their lives really are. And I am not going to be acting in contempt of court. I'm not going to be identifying the children involved in this case. I have no intention in trying to find out who they were, who they're like. I don't give a shit. Like the dad and the kids that are completely innocent of any crimes or misconducts in this case, just let them disappear into anonymity. That's the kindest thing you can do for them. However, we must not forget this case and the perpetrators behind it, because most of them will be out of jail. Well, only one of them's in jail as far as I know, and the others just fled the country. So we need to know. So, judgment for Mrs. Justice Porfley REP&Q Children Care Proceedings Fact Finding. This judgment is being given in public and without anonymisation save as to the children's names. The subject children have been named repeatedly on the internet. Their photographs and film clips in which they feature have been published and republished widely. Filmed police interviews of the children have been uploaded onto publicly accessible websites, so too intensely personal information relating to both children. As at 10th of March 2015, more than 4 million people worldwide had viewed online material relating to this case. It is inevitable that a large proportion of those have a sexual interest in children. Any rational adult who uploads film clips to YouTube featuring children speaking about sexual activity must be assumed to realise that fact. Ace family. Fucking Austin McBroom. Editing Pete. Don't include clips. I don't want to have that clip in this video. Just, if you don't know about Austin McBroom, filmed his niece buying and sucking a penis-shaped lollipop from the adult section of a department store. It's like 4 or 5-year-old niece. Woo. Guy still has a massive YouTube following. I considered but ultimately rejected the suggestion that the children's names should appear within the judgment. My priority is to protect them from further harm of whatever kind. Those who have posted material identifying the children have done so with flagrant disregard for their welfare interests. I see no good reason for adding to the damage already done. Only those with prurient or unhealthy curiosity will take steps to identify the children. My faith in humanity indicates that the overwhelming majority of individuals will do nothing because they, like me, have no interest in inflicting further harm. Pray for humanity. In the period before 13th January 2015, there had been some relatively limited online publication of court and other relevant material. It had been my hope that after discussion with the mother and her Mackenzie friend on 13th of January, there would have been a withdrawal of material from the internet. Since about 26th January, the volume posted in a variety of formats on different sites has increased markedly, and the claims made against the father, the children's former head teacher, other teachers, professionals, and a very large number of parents at the children's former school have proliferated. Many of those individuals are now living in fear because they have been identified on the internet as abusers of children, and their contact details, including telephone numbers, home, and email addresses, have been published. They were completely doxed. And this is why when you see a website like a charity, like first person plural, linking to Joan Coleman's RAINS list, which is a doxing list, where she just doxed more than 100 people from the Portsmouth and Havant area because she didn't like them, they weren't Christian enough for her. Lives have been disrupted. Several of those implicated have received malicious, intimidating phone calls and emails at all hours of the day and night from all over the world. For example, "Hey cock, we're coming for you, you scum pedo." It has been necessary. Not the pedo isn't the fucking creep that has no relation to these children filming them talking about sex. It has been necessary for the police to protect worried parents and children at the gates of the school in Hampstead at the centre of the allegations. Prospective parents have wondered whether to withdraw their children from allocated places, and existing parents have been uniformly supportive of the school and every member of the teaching staff. These are care proceedings brought by the London Borough of Barnet relating to 2 children, P and Q, who are 9 and 8 years old respectively. Their parents are Ella Draper and Ricky Dearman. In September 2014, lurid allegations, the most serious kind, were drawn to the attention of the Metropolitan Police in a variety of ways. It was suggested that P and Q were part of a large group of children from North London who had been sexually abused, made to abuse one another, and that they had belonged to a satanic cult in which there was significant paedophile activity. Specifically, it was said that babies were supplied from all over the world. They were bought, injected with drugs, and then sent by TNT or DHL to London. The assertions were that babies had been abused, tortured, and then sacrificed. Their throats were slit, blood was drunk, and cult members would then dance wearing baby skulls, sometimes with blood and hair still attached, on their bodies. All the cult members wore shoes made of baby skin, produced by the owner of a specified shoe repair shop. Can you imagine how that must have completely destroyed that poor man's life? completely innocent man having his life destroyed by some insane people. It is very interesting to me and very telling that the other hotbed of SRA allegations in the UK is Norwich, where the Pottergate Centre and Chloe went to university. Children, it was alleged, would be anally abused by adult members of the cult using plastic penises or willies. Christchurch Primary School in Hampstead was said to be where the main action occurred, but at least 7 other local schools were named. East Finchley Swimming Pool was identified as one of the other meeting venues for the paedophile ring. Rituals were performed, so it was claimed, in an upstairs room at the McDonald's restaurant where the boss allowed child sacrifices because he was a member of the cult. Human babies were prepared, cooked in the ovens within a secret kitchen, and then eaten by cult members. These allegations were from 2012 to 2014. So this is prior to Pizzagate. Crazy, right? It was alleged that the children's father was the leader of the cult, and the others included the children's head teacher, Miss Forsdyke, another teacher, Mr. Hollings, the priest at the adjacent church, a large number of named parents of other children, social workers, Kafkas officers, and police officers. It was said that in all, more than 100 people were involved in doing sex to the children. I am able to state with complete conviction that none of the allegations are true. I am entirely certain that everything Miss Draper, her partner Abraham Christie, and the children said about those matters was fabricated. The claims are baseless. Those who have sought to perpetuate them are evil and or foolish. They're evil and stupid. As far as I am concerned, chaos is evil. Spreading misinformation, lying about shit, is chaos. It's pure evil. All the indications that over a period of some weeks last summer, P&Q were forced by Mr. Christie and Miss Draper, working in partnership to provide concocted accounts of horrific events. The stories came about as the result of relentless emotional and psychological pressure, as well as significant physical abuse. Torture is a strong word, but it is the most accurate way to describe what was done to the children by Mr. Christie in collaboration with Miss Draper. The children were made to take part in filmed mobile phone recordings in which they relayed a series of fabricated satanic practices. Subsequently, at the instigation of Abraham Christie and Ella Draper, the children repeated their false stories to Jean-Clement Yao-Hiro, Mr. Christie's brother-in-law. In a late-night discussion, it lasted for about 3 hours. Mr. Christie and Miss Draper did most of the talking. So they interrogated 2 children. A stranger interrogated 2 children. Miss Draper and Mr. Christie have not participated by being present in court. I am sure as I can be that their absence has been deliberate. They have chosen to remain away, but the internet campaign has continued. Countless online articles have been posted in which the truth of satanic abuse claims is asserted repeatedly, notwithstanding injunctions restraining Miss Draper and Sabine McNeil, one of her supporters, from publishing information from the proceedings on the internet or elsewhere. Such material continues to be uploaded. Efforts to persuade internet servers to remove the material have been of only limited value. As soon as information is removed by one provider, it emerges elsewhere. The hearing has been lengthy. I listened to evidence from 16 witnesses. I read thousands of pages of written material and watched 6 AB interviews. I viewed a dozen or so short film clips of the children being questioned by Miss Draper and Mr. Christie and listened to the very lengthy audio recording. The forensic inquiry has been full and thorough. It has made little difference that Miss Draper has been absent. I have been actively assisted in my investigation role by Ms. Markham, counsel for the local authority, and Mr. Gageros, who represents the Guardian. Each has asked questions designed to explore those matters which, in all probability, the mother would have raised. Close attention has been given to the claims she'd made in her written material so as to ensure her case was put to all relevant witnesses. So as you can tell from this little brief intro summary, the people making the claims of abuse are also the people completely unwilling to work with the police and the courts. Funny that. Why wouldn't you want to work with the police if you were innocent and telling the truth? Ms. Draper is an older child, R, now almost an adult, who is not related to Mr. Dearman. His father is Will Draper. R has lived with his father full-time since the summer of 2020. The parents of P and Q met in 2003. Their relationship had disintegrated by 2006 when the father went to live in an adjacent street. There were occasional referrals to the police when domestic violence was alleged. Ms. Draper initiated private law proceedings in 2008. Over the course of the next 6 years, there was never a time when the children's contact with their father proceeded smoothly. Countless returns to court achieved very little. If there was an attempt to achieve judicial continuity, it failed miserably. But because of the fucked up British system of the courts, a non-molestation injunction order was made against the father in 2010. There was some involvement on the part of the London Borough of Camden in this... London Borough of Camden, where fucking Wilfred Wong's from, eh? Pardon me. In December 2008, a core assessment was prepared. Between May 2010 and October 2013, therapeutic sessions occurred intermittently at the Tavistock Clinic.
Editing Pete here. I knew Tavistock Clinic rang a bell. Tavistock Clinic is the same clinic that trained Dr. Mike Lloyd, one of the nation's and Wales's leading specialists in DID. Tavistock Clinic that employs Joanna Stubley, one of the nation's leading specialists in DID. Someone who... She's the woman who wrote The Kraken Awakens, which is a well-cited and often mentioned book within DID circles. Same Tavistock Clinic that just last month was scored inadequate, the lowest possible score by the NHS for their clinic. An inadequate clinic. SRA and DID linking up again.
There was a period, notably between November 2011 and 2012, when the children did not have contact with their father. There was intermittent concern about P's relationship with her mother, and also that both children were presenting as and complaining of being hungry at school.
He's abusing my kids even though he hasn't seen them for a year. It's his fault that they're starving.
I'm all good, boy. Sorry. Oh, Dante got worried about me. I'm okay. My mic. You're such a pain, Dante. I'm okay. In May 2014, after a period of renewed involvement by the London Borough of Camden, Mr. Dearman had contact with the children for the first time since October 2013. In that same month, the mother met Abraham Christie. On 4th June 2014, there was a sense in the playground at Christchurch School when Mr. Christie was collecting P&Q at the end of the school day. He was loud and aggressive, accusing the teachers of poisoning the children by giving them the food supplied at the school. So because the kids were complaining about being hungry and starving and unable to concentrate in class and probably looking malnourished as fuck, this abusive cunt decided to abuse the teachers verbally. Wow. Amazing. By the middle of June, according to Miss Draper, Mr. Christie was staying over at her home on 2 or 3 nights each week. The evolution of the allegations. In August 2014, at a time when he was holidaying in France, Jean Clement Yahiro received phone calls and messages from Mr. Christie in which he said he had information regarding the abuse of children. In evidence, Mr. Yahiro said that Abraham had not been coming forward with specific information, but was trying to give him justification. Abraham Christie said that a church, a school in Hampstead, and a police station in Haringey were involved. Mr. Yahiro had asked whether Mr. Christie had evidence. He said yes, and that it was for July. In early August, the mother, Mr. Christie, and the children went abroad. They travelled to Gibraltar and then Morocco, then returned on 4th September. It seems entirely probable that the majority of the short film clips of the children speaking to camera were made at the airport whilst awaiting their flight back to England. There are others which appear to have been made whilst Q was either getting ready for bed or had awoken from sleep. When Mr. Yahiro came back to England on 3rd September, he had told Mr. Christie over the phone that anyone can make an allegation, but he would need sufficient evidence for the police to take the case forward. Mr. Christie had replied, "I will bring you evidence." On 4th September 2014, in the late evening, Mr. Yahiro returned to his home after work to find Mr. Christie, P and Q present. They were subsequently joined by Miss Draper. With great presence of mind, Mr. Yahiro recorded the conversations between himself, Mr. Christie, the children, and the mother on his mobile phone. Because, according to Mr. Christie, Haringey police officials were implicated, Mr. Yahiro decided to report the matter to Scotland Yard. Subsequently, he was in touch by email with Detective Inspector Cannon, the senior investigating officer with responsibility for overseeing the police inquiry. By then, Mr. Yalhiri was, as he said in evidence, greatly concerned for the children's welfare. Mr. Yalhiri described how he had suggested to D.I. Cannon that the children should be placed in a safe environment until the case had been sorted out. Mr. Yalhiri said he had been unsettled by what he'd heard and believed the children needed some medical or psychological assistance. On 5th September at about 3 o'clock, Barnet Police began what D.I. Cannon described in evidence as a wide-ranging investigation involving, as it seemed, threats to life. In all, 6 officers were deployed. That evening, D.C. Martin conducted ABE interviews with P&Q. Overnight, in response to the mother's perceived fear, a panic alarm was installed at the home. D.I. Cannon compiled a summary of events that evening and logged it into the system at 1:15 on 6th of September. 1:15 in the morning. Wow. D.I. Cannon was working. See, I'm thoroughly impressed by the police's response to this. It's incredible. It's swift. And, you know, they're doing everything they can to protect children from what appear to be threats of abuse and harm. They just didn't know that the ones they were trying to protect at this time were the ones doing the abuse and the harm. On Monday the 8th of September, the children were taken by the police on a drive around the area in an unsuccessful attempt to identify the specific locations where abusive practices had occurred. On the 10th of September, D.S. Fernandez and D.C. Martin visited and inspected the interior of the church adjacent to Christ Church School. No notice had been given of their intended arrival. They had a good look around the vestry, including within the drawers where the priest's vestments were stored, searching for material to assist in their inquiries. They found nothing of interest to the inquiry. That same day, P&Q underwent further ABE interviews, led by D.C. Martin. D.S. Fernandez interviewed the mother. He described in evidence how Miss Draper had told him in great detail about abuse, but there had been no tears at all. There was, he said, a distinct lack of emotion. It was just like she had learned this. It was quite strange. Almost as if the abuse wasn't real and just a story. On 11th September, P&Q were made the subjects of a police protection order. On 12th September, both children were examined by Dr. Hodes, a consultant community paediatrician at both the Royal Free Hospital and University College London Hospital. On 16th September, Dr. Hodes performed a second examination of both children. On 17th of September, there were further ABE interviews. The mother's and Mr. Christie's participation. In the initial stages of the proceedings, Miss Draper had the advantage of representation by experienced solicitors and counsel. On 10th December 2014 at court, she dispensed with her legal team. My first? Oh, wow. Yeah. That moment, because she'd probably gone to her legal team with all this stuff and they'd said, no, we're not going to go to court with baseless accusations. And so she had to get rid of them. That's hilarious. My first involvement with the case was on 13th January 2015. Dates were secured for this hearing as follows. The 17th, 20th of February, 3rd, 6th, and 10th, 12th of March. On 13th January, the indications from Miss Draper were that once again she would avail herself of legal representation. Until 26th of January 2015, the mother appeared as a litigant in person, assisted by Mackenzie friends. On 9th January, my clerk notified the parties by email that there would be a hearing the following day. Miss Draper failed to attend court on 10th February when mandatory and prohibitory injunctions were made against her. Miss Draper has not filed further evidence nor any schedule of the detailed findings sought as directed by my order of 20th of January. Arrangements had been made for her to attend at the offices of the local authority to collect the final bundle and practice direction documents. Miss Draper did not attend, although her email communication had suggested she would. The mother has remained absent from the court. Her partner, Abraham Christie, was outside the front entrance of the building on 17th February as part of the group campaigning for the return of the whistleblower kids to their Russian family. A witness summons was issued requiring his attendance to answer questions on Friday 20th of February. Attempts to serve that summons were unsuccessful. Earlier attempts at securing Mr. Christie's participation in the proceedings because of the likelihood that the local authority would seek findings against him were wholly unsuccessful. A series of communications from the local authority's solicitor went unanswered. It may be the mother would contend that she has been prevented from attending this hearing as the result of police action on the evening of 12th February. DS Paul Spear from Collinsdale Police Station described in evidence what happened firstly on the morning of 10th February when he spoke with Miss Draper over the telephone to discuss the material on the internet. Miss Draper told DS Spear that it was nothing to do with her. She did not wish to speak to him and did not trust the police. On 12th February, police officers attended at Miss Draper's address. Her car was on the driveway. A gentleman spoke with the police through the letterbox and indicated that he was the mother's lawyer. The police explained that they were there to... Abraham Christie is there on the other side.
I'm a lawyer. Leave us alone. I'm a lawyer. She's got a lawyer.
That's probably what happened. The police explained that they were there to discuss possible offences committed under Section 4 of the Harassment Act 1997. They were denied entry to the property. Whilst the police were waiting for the means to secure a forced entry, 3 people climbed out of a first-floor window, ran along the roof line of 3 or 4 houses, and climbed down onto some nearby garages where they disappeared from sight. The mother has not been seen by anyone in the authorities since 12th of February. There are rumours that she has fled abroad. Her mother, Mrs. Gravera, and this is still the case to this day. Mrs. Gravera told me that she had had several phone conversations with her daughter. The last occasion was the day before the grandparents came to give evidence on the 4th of March. Miss Draper has not said where she was and had not mentioned the court hearing. Mrs. Gariva said that she had tried to persuade her daughter to come back. In response, Miss Draper had said that she was afraid she would be arrested and would not be able to fight for the children. Miss Gariva also said that Mr. Christie, who they had seen as recently as 17th of February, had said that they, the grandparents, should not know where their daughter was. Running from the police to try and prove themselves right. There is no substance in the assertion that the mother has been prevented from participating at this hearing. If she had been arrested on 12th February in connection with harassment allegations, the overwhelming likelihood is that she would have been released on bail, enabling her to come to court on the 17th of February. If she had been remanded in custody, I would have been in contact with the police and prison authorities so as to make appropriate arrangements for Miss Draper's attendance at court. As it is, Miss Draper has not communicated either with the local authority or with my clerk at any time since 17th February, nor has she had contact with or made any inquiry about the children. I need to save the children from the satanic pedos. I need to save the children from satanic pedos. No, I'm just going to... But now that there's a possibility, because I've been lying about this stuff and harassing people online, that I might have to spend like a couple of weeks in jail, I'm going to disappear completely from their lives. Definitely the one on the right side of things here. Anyone who can continue. I'm sickened by this. She hasn't made any attempt to contact her children. Any. Disgusting. Within her position statement for 26th January hearing, written for her by Miss Sabine McNeil, a name to remember for later, as she later revealed, the mother made a thinly veiled threat as to what would happen if the children were not returned to their mother and grandparents with immediate effect. Miss Draper stated that the consequence would be high-level embarrassment. An open letter to Theresa May, the Home Secretary, posted on the internet, explicitly states who would later become Prime Minister of the country, explicitly states that the position statement was our offer not to expose this scandal in exchange for returning the children. We're not going to expose to the internet that you're a paedophile cabal of child-eating Satanists in return for returning my children to me. How fucking thick can you be? You're going to try and blackmail the Home Secretary, the woman who would become the most powerful woman in our nation. I'm not even a Theresa May fan. I hate the Conservatives. But you're going to try and blackmail her. I've literally had a comment on one of these videos from somebody saying that they can prove SRA exists, and their proof is that they're doing it to get the adrenochrome. They're drinking the children's blood as they kill them in order to get adrenochrome, a made-up, fictional, non-existent drug that's never existed, and it's made up. It is made up. You people are disgusting. Adrenochrome is just a made-up modernization of the anti-Semitic belief in blood libel. Grow the fuck up, you racist paedophile scum. Honestly. The clear message from the recent events is that whilst Miss Draper is prepared to campaign using the internet, she is not willing to take part in this inquiry. The mother's case. The mother's case is clearly stated within these documents filed by her. Within a document entitled Summaries in Support of the Accusations Made by My Children, Miss Draper says this: "The statements made are not only exceptionally serious, but also so outrageous that they are effectively unbelievable. Hence my then partner Abraham Christie and I talked to them separately on holidays to ensure that their allegations were the truth." Because that's how that works. You hear something that is completely unbelievable and you're like, well, that must be true. Something that's completely unbelievable and has zero evidence for it. But you're a sadistic twat. According to the mother, the most convincing argument of their believability is the utter consistency between what they are saying separately and together on holiday back home with Jean Clement Yahiro on the 4th of the 9th of 2014, 4th of September 2014, and in the interviews with Barnet Police on all of those days as well. Miss Draper also contends that the medical reports clearly confirm sexual abuse over many months. She places emphasis on children having repeatedly expressed their fears of their father killing them, their nightmares and generally post-traumatic stress. Though it did not emerge in any detail from the children's police interviews, the mother's claims against the father that the most serious kinds of sexual abuse extend back to the time when P&Q were babies and include grotesque assertions of repeated interference. She also claims that Mr. Dearman, rather than Mr. Christie, was responsible for the assaults which led to physical signs of injury, as found by Dr. Hodes last September, even though that's literally impossible. As they were in another country. What fucking idiots. The law. The law in this area is well known. There is only one standard of proof, namely the simple balance of probabilities. The burden of proof is on the party who makes the allegations. RE, the 2008 UK HL 35. That's standard law, UK, America, any decent country that has a decent legal system. The burden of proof is always on the accuser. The burden of proof to come up with evidence to defend themselves is only on the defendant if there is evidence to actually prove that they've done something, Otherwise the defendant can actually just tell you to fuck right off. The inherent probability or improbability of an event is a matter to be taken into account when weighing the probabilities and deciding whether on balance the event occurred. Common sense, not law, requires that in deciding this question regard should be had to whatever extent appropriate to inherent probabilities. Neither the seriousness of the allegations nor the seriousness of the consequences should make any difference to the standard of proof in determining the facts. In our legal system, if a judge finds it more likely than not that something did take place, then it is treated as having taken place. If he finds it more likely than not that it did not take place, then it is treated as not having taken place. He has to find for one side or the other. He is not allowed to sit on the fence. Sometimes the burden of proof will come to the rescue. The party with the burden of showing that something took place will not have satisfied him that it did. But generally speaking, a judge is able to make up his mind where the truth lies without needing to rely upon the burden of proof. As the then President Dame Elizabeth Butler Slough said in RET 2004 TFLR 838, I love legal shit. Evidence cannot be evaluated and assessed in separate compartments. A judge in these difficult cases must have regard to the relevance of each piece of evidence to other evidence and to exercise an overview of the totality of the evidence in order to come to the conclusion whether the case put forward by the local authority has been made out to the required standard of proof. Ergo, you have a minimum requirement. You need to provide a certain amount of evidence and proof for a criminal allegation to even be looked at seriously by a judge. And intensity or severity of allegation is not conducive to being proof. Saying something horrific does not count in any shape, way, or form as evidence or reason to go ahead with a case. Of course, where such extreme things had been alleged in this case, it needed to go ahead. And it then gained far more interest within this judge's perception as the mother continued to act in more and more criminal manners. There was an acceptance on all sides that it would not have been appropriate for either child to have given oral evidence. Applying the criteria set out in REW Children Abuse Oral Evidence 2010 UKSC 12, the uncontroversial answer to the essential test as to whether justice can be done to all parties without further questioning of the child is that it could. Ergo, children's perceptions, statements, a child's witness testimony cannot ever be considered evidence. They're children, they're prone to imagining things, lying about things, and not understanding the severity of what they're saying, especially if they've had poor education and grown up in manipulative and abusive circumstances. Ergo, the word of an abuse victim can never be used as evidence in court. Ever. There has to be evidence. And this sucks for millions of rape victims. This sucks for millions of abuse victims. But if we want to live in a world that actually respects the law instead of, just belief and faith, if we want to live in a world of rational science and skepticism, then that's the way it just has to be. Accordingly, it becomes necessary to consider how the hearsay evidence comprised within the children's AV interviews should be treated. It is admissible as a matter of law pursuant to S4 of the Civil Evidence Act 1995 when estimating the weight to be given to hearsay evidence. The court must have regard to any circumstance from which any inference can reasonably be drawn to the reliability or otherwise of the evidence. When a judge considers whether to rely on the statements of a child made to others, the following factors amongst others are relevant: the child's age, the context in which the statement had been made, the surrounding circumstances, the child's previous behaviour, the child's opportunities to have had knowledge from other sources, any knowledge of the child's predisposition to tell untruths or fantasize. Thus, you can see why hearsay is always, hearsay can be something that can be used in court, as I have learned multiple times from Legal, but hearsay from a child? No chance. Never. That's not how things work. The mobile phone recordings. The mobile phone clips made by the mother and Mr. Christie form part of the material relied upon by Miss Draper to support the claims of exceptionally serious abuse. There are 16 short clips in all, although 3 appear to be copies. It is useful to set out a reasonably full extract of the first film clip because of the way it sets the scene for the rest. The children are standing at the side of a car in a public place, possibly at an airport. P&Q look tired. There is a noticeable graze on P's chin and seemingly a large bruise in the centre of her forehead. The conversation begins between the two children and Mr. Christie. P and Q talk about deciding to stop touching each other and the children. P says they will face their fear and face our urge and stop touching ourselves. Mr. Christie asks, what else are you going to stop? Q replies, and stop killing babies. Q replies, I can't stop getting over. Right? This happened a year before Pizzagate happened. This is my own conspiracy theory, I know, but it's more like, I think it is more likely just coincidence, but fucking hell. History never repeats, but it always echoes. Q replies, and stop killing babies. Mr. Christie says, you're going to face your fear, because fear is what? P replies, fear is the mind killer. Abraham Christie is a loser, fucking Sigma Alpha, fear is the mind killer, smoke weed every day, and abuse bitches like cray, kind of fuckboy psychopath that exists in this world. Fear is the mind killer. Mr. Christie then says, and you're going to help us catch. Who are you going to help us catch? Both children reply, all the paedophiles. P adds, Papa, Mr. Hollings. Both children say, the school. Miss Draper interjects, all the policemen, all the social services. Mr. Christie urges the children to speak up, speak up. The children then repeat, all the social services, and add, all the shopkeepers, Kafkas, all the cafes, all the Pizza Express, McDonald's. Mr. Christie asks, who's Kafkas? What's Kafkas? P and Q reply, Kafkas is, they work with, they're for children. They work with social services. Mr. Christie asks, and what did they do to you? Both children, one after the other, respond, and he films this, and he uploads this to the goddamn fucking internet, you disgusting fucking monster. Mr. Christie asks, sorry. Mr. Christie then asks the children to say who has done this. The children reply, everybody does. In response to his direct questions, who? The children say, Papa, Mr. Hollings, the school. The mother interjects, parents. Q adds, my dad's family. Mr. Christie then says, tell me more people. Tell me some more people because I'm interested. P adds, parents, policemen. And this is why, even though it is just hearsay, it is hearsay that the police had to investigate. What were they doing to coach the kids into saying this shit? That is the part that I still just, that's the most upsetting. I can't think about it. I don't want to, but knowing there were physical signs of abuse, knowing some of the stuff we're going to read coming up about some of the forensic and medical examinations done on the kids that revealed the ingesting of drugs. Mr. Christie asks, what about the teachers at the school? Who are the main ones? The children give names and then they are asked what the head teacher does. Both reply simultaneously, and she does sex. Next, Mr. Christie asks, and what happens in the church? P replies, and we do sex with the baby. Like, you wouldn't know the word. That is wrong. The words they're using, this isn't, when abuse victims describe this stuff, this is not how they talk at all. Fortunately, psychologists have discovered what kids who have been coached by malicious parents sound like, and kids who have been coached by cults and organised religions sound like. Religions like Christianity, not Satanism. And what happens in the church? P replies, and we do sex with the baby sacrifice and eat the baby. Mr. Christie asks what she means, and she says, so we kill the baby and eat it and drink the blood from it. Mr. Christie asks Q whether that is true. He replies, yes, and we dance with the skulls, baby skulls. One of Mr. Christie's final questions is as to who kills the babies. Both children reply, Papa. Mr. Christie then says, and what? He gets you to help him? Both children say, yes. P adds, so he tells us to hold our hands in a knife, and then he holds his hand on our hand, so then he cuts the baby's head off, and he tip it upside down, and then we drain the blood, Mr. Draper asks, and then what they do? And then we cook it, and then we drink the blood and offer, we pick the bones, dance with the skulls. The other film clips are similar in that the interrogations of the children is undertaken in the main by Mr. Christie with occasional interventions by Miss Draper. More and more information about the activities of the cult and the identities of those involved is recorded. In the second extract, the children are instructed to tell the camera, say what you've said to the camera. Miss Draper at one point says, "So what are we going to do? We're going to protect other babies and children, huh? And save those children who are involved or have been forced to be involved, right?" Whilst abandoning her own children and making zero attempt to contact them. 3. She's had 3 children that she's got no contact with. Right. Mother of the Year here. She even had the police on her side in the initial, protecting her, helping her, because that's what they do when a mother accuses a man of abuse and harassment. They get instantly protected. She had the law on her side. You have to really fuck up to not be allowed to see 3 of your children and to also not bother making any fucking sort of attempt to contact them, you disgusting, sick, pedo scum. The 8th clip starts with Mr. Christie saying to Q, "Keep saying it to her." It seems that he and the children are by then on a plane. Q then pleads with P to tell the truth. He begs her saying, "P, it's really important. If you won't tell the truth, you'll get yourself into big trouble. So please tell the truth." Threatening the children. That's how you know these people are both evil and stupid. Because they filmed themselves threatening the children and uploaded that and gave that shit to the police as their own testimonies and defences and evidence. Filming themselves threatening children painted them in a good light. And the thing is, for some utter fucktards out there, utter brain-dead fucking dickheads, they believe that. If you won't tell the truth, you'll get yourself into big trouble, so please tell the truth. The 10th clip continues similarly. Q fervently pleads with P to tell the truth. He says, "Mum and Papa Hemp are protecting you, and you have to help them protect yourself." Yeah, because obviously all Mr. Christie was interested in was hemp. Papa Hemp. Papa Hemp, eh? Are protecting you, and you have to help them protect yourself, and to protect all of us, because we're in a group. If the group lies will start to get wrong, things will start to happen wrong, and you might broke a glass, you might hurt yourself. While they have been mind-fucking the kid, they completely were abusing and psychologically manipulating and torturing these children. Mr. Christie asks, "What about the babies?" Q replies, "And you might get your payment for the babies. You might get killed by someone." I've been telling these children that they're going to get killed if they don't tell the police what they're being told to tell the police. This little girl is probably actually scared for her sister, scared that Papa Hemp is going to kill or beat them if they don't say this stuff in the videos. 4th of September recorded discussions between Abraham Christie and the children. The audio recording made by Jean Clement Yao on his mobile phone is a key component of the material relevant to this inquiry. It provides an invaluable record of the interaction between Mr. Christie and the children, the various prompts and instructions given by him to the children, and later, an insight into the mother's attitude towards the children's relationship with their father. At the very beginning, Mr. Christie instructs the children, "Don't tell Jean Clement any lies. Do you hear me?" He continues, "Otherwise, we'll have to lock you up in the jail. Have you got room to lock her up tonight, Jean Clement? Have you room? Yes or no?" Mr. Christie then laughs and says, "So tell him what you said. You deserve to be locked up for killing the baby. Listen, did you kill any babies?" Threatening to lock them up. Threatening to abuse them if they don't tell a lie. One of the children replies, "No." Mr. Christie asks, "Who killed the babies?" A child replies, Papa, hold our hand. We put on our hand, but we..." Mr. Christie then interrupts, saying, "No, he puts your hand on." The children continues, "And he puts his hand on ours, cuts off the baby's head because he's strong." Mr. Christie interrupts again, "But he teaches you..." Mr. Christie then explains to Jean Clement Yao in the presence of the children what this is all about. He says, "You don't understand what I'm telling you. They're killing babies wholesale. They're killing them. They're drinking the blood and they're eating meat. And the skulls of the babies, they're tying them. 4 skulls here, 1 here, 2 here, elbows here. And they are making, what about the shoes? This baby..." One of the children says, "Yeah, baby skin shoes." Mr. Christie asks, "Who makes the baby skin shoes?" A man's name is given, and in response to the question as to whether he is a shoemaker, the child answers that he is. There is a period early on where Mr. Christie asks the series is... holy shit. There is a period early on when Mr. Christie asks the children a series of quick-fire questions. What about the doctor? Is he one as well? Answer, yes. What about your headmistress? Is she one as well? Yes. How many skulls does she wear when she's dancing? 20. So how many adults are involved then? So maybe like 400, 400 plus, 450, 430, something like that. Yes, because children can count as a 9 or 8 year old can count as high as 400. How many skulls do they wear? 20. Mr. Christie then says, so there's over 400 adults and they're all wearing 20 skulls each. Can you do the maths? That's over 800. I can't even, oh my god. Buddy, he's literally the most evil and stupid person to ever walk this earth. One of. A little later on in the discussion with Mr. Yowhero, Mr. Christie introduces the notion that the mother's 3 children are involved with this cult. He said the mother had come to him because she knew he could help her. She didn't know how, and he, Mr. Christie, didn't know how. Mr. Christie then said, some of her friends that come to the house, they come to the house and they go to the school and they sex the children behind her back. Mr. Yowhero asks if anything happened at the school. Mr. Christie replies, in the school, in the church, and above at the swimming pool, at the local swimming pool. One of the children adds, in the house. Mr. Christie goes on to say, happens in school during school hours. You go there on a Wednesday and you will arrest them all and you will take the children in the school because they do it every child in the school, and I guarantee you out of the children, 100 of them will talk. P then says, and they sell us for £50 each, so Papa sells me and Q. Christie adds, at the parties, 100 people do sex with them, 200 times, 50 is how much? 10 grand. I've done the maths already. What else do they sell? One of the children starts to reply, but is told to shut up by Mr. Christie. He then says, he makes movies, he makes snuff. He was going to say something else, obviously. He makes movies, he makes snuff movies of the babies, and he sells them in Ukraine, in Russia, in Brazil, in Portugal, in Brussels, in England. He sells them all over the world. At times, Mr. Christie sounded very agitated and aggressive. For example, when he told Mr. Yowhero that they have to give the children's passports back to the solicitor as a member of the paedophile groups. That's why he got her to get rid of the fucking solicitor, because, oh God, what a nut job. And also when he says, but we're not going to let him, the father, see them. We can't let him see them. They will kill him. They will kill them. A little later, there is a discussion between Mr. Christie and Mr. Yowhero about the court proceedings between the mother and father. Mr. Christie explains that Mr. Dearman has taken the mother to court because he wants to see his children. Mr. Christie rhetorically asks, but why does he want to see them? To do sex to them? To make a party? To sell them to other people and to make movies? We cannot allow it to happen anymore. He must be arrested. Mr. Christie then introduces the topic of Papa's secret room, asking one of the children to say what is done there, but nothing is said by either child. There is evident pressure upon the children when, for example, Mr. Christie asks, has father got keys to the house? Yeah. Mr. Christie says, is it a lie? Is it a lie? We do not have time for lies. Oh God, he goes full-blown Gollum on them. Is it a lie? Is it a lie? We do not have time for lies here with these tricksy hobbits. Oh. I'm not one for expressing violent desires very often, but I genuinely, with all of my heart, want to punch this man with all of my strength square in the face. Pure evil. This man is pure evil. Mr. Christie is directive towards the children, saying, be quiet and go outside now. Come on, hurry up. Outside. Don't play around. Just stay there. That's it. That's right. Discipline. And a little later, sit around the table properly, son. Don't let me tell you again. You sit down properly. Thank you. Don't let me tell you again. Sit down at the table properly. Why does he repeat himself so much? Is he actually he's actually a bit fucking loopy, this bloke? He's not just stupid and evil. He's also, probably schizophrenic or something based on the way he's acting. He's fucking lost the plot wherever he is. Based on his rather large criminal record, I think he could be. Quick shout out and thank you to Hampstead for providing me with all of this. Dropping into my comments and letting me know that you exist, basically. Thank you so much. This is a goldmine. You've The writing on it is fantastic. You've documented everything clearly and concisely, but also in incredibly great detail where it needs to be. Just to get a quick understanding of Abraham Christie, he's a small-time criminal who has approximately 36 convictions to his name, primarily for assault, forgery, fraud, and abusing his own biological children.
You melting down, boy? Is this a meltdown? No. No. What you saying, eh? Have you gone insane? Have you lost the plot? He's lost the plot. He's gone crazy. He's gone crazy.